Good day, class. So today we're going to have a discussion regarding the topic 2 of the epidemiology, measures of disease frequency. Okay, so for today, ang importanteng malaman ninyo would be first one, to differentiate incidence and prevalence measures. And the second one is to calculate and interpret the following measures, yung relative measures at saka yung mga measures of disease frequency. So, you may pause the video now and then you get your calculators na, no? Kasi we're going to have computations in this particular topic. Okay? So, if you're ready, let's go na. Now, in this scenario, before we proceed on our main topic, let's look at this scenario first. We have two barangays, Barangay A and then Barangay B, and they're cases of tuberculosis. So, si Barangay A, meron siyang 50, whereas yung Barangay B, it has 10. So, the question here was, which barangay has a higher number of cases of tuberculosis? So, if we're going to base the assumption, no, na both of these barangay has an equal population, no? Wala kasing particular na data na inintroduce sa atin regarding the population. Ang binigay lang sa atin is yung number of absolute number or absolute value ng mga cases of tuberculosis per barangay. So, basically, we would answer here is Barangay A. Okay? But in epidemiology, this particular table is of limited utility. Ibig sabihin, hindi mo siya talaga magagamit. Okay? Next slide. So, in epidemiology, simple counts have limited utility. Sabi ko nga kanina, or yung mga absolute values lang. Pag titignan natin would be this one lang. Yan, yung kanina. That is not actually epidemiology. Okay? The trend of occurrence over time cannot be made. Hindi ka makaka-assess ng trend ng occurrence if it is going up or if it is going downward. Okay? And then another thing is you cannot identify the risk of disease or yung mga deaths among members of the various populations. No? Tatandaan nyo, take note of this, no? In epidemiology, to be able to effectively investigate distribution and determinants, diba? If you recall, dun sa introduction natin, we define what's the meaning of distribution and the determinants of disease. And these two are the major factor na para ka makapag-formulate ka and mag-test ka ng hypothesis mo with regards to epidemiology. Okay, ulitin ko. In epidemiology, to be able to effectively investigate distribution and determinants of disease, number 1, kailangan mo ng size of population from which the affected individuals were derived. Okay, so importante na yung size of population wherein yung mga particular disease occurrence mo nangyari, no? Or yung mga tinatawag nating population at risk. Okay, sila. So, dapat you have that particular data. And letter B, kailangan mo rin ng time period during which data were collected. So, these two are very important. So, number 1, the size of population from which the affected individuals were derived. And number 2 is yung time period during which data were collected. And if you have all of that, along with the cases, no, and other important details, you can now investigate or you can now utilize the principles of epidemiology to compute yung disease frequency mo. Okay? So, ganun siya ka-importante. So, in this case, sino kaya yung mas lamang? Kanina, ito lang nakita natin, no? Yung part of the table lang. So, yung absolute value lang, syempre, mas mataas yung 50, no? However, if we utilize the tools in epidemiology, the answer would be letter B or yung barangay B. Kasi is 1%, no? Ibig sabihin, mas mataas siya ng cases of tuberculosis kaysa dun sa letter A. With the help of this data. Okay? So, mamaya, tuturo natin yan. Okay, so, first, we need to understand or we need to learn about relative measures. So, pag sinabing relative measures, they are mathematical parameters used to relate disease occurrence to the size of the source population. So, meron ka lang numerator and denominator multiplied by a factor. Ganun lang siya kasimple. So, expression of the relative size of two numbers obtained by dividing one number by another number. Okay? And the resulting number is expressed in multiples of 10. Ito yung tinatawag nating factor or yung symbol na small letter k. Okay? For ease of comparing two or more groups. So basically, pag nakita niyo yung small letter k na yan, that means it's either 10, 100, 1,000, and etc. No? Basta multiples of 10. Okay? And kapag hindi given yung factor, no, kapag hindi given yung factor, automatic na, in epidemiology, ang gagamitin mong factor is 100. Ulitin ko, kapag hindi given yung factor or yung small letter k sa isang given problem, okay, ang gagamitin mo is 100 as your factor. Okay? Next. Now, first, we have ratio. So, ratio is a measure obtained by dividing one quantity by another without implying any specific relationship between the numerator and the denominator. Okay? So, medyo baliktad. Ano yan, no? Nagulo yung format niya. Pero it's ganito yan. Ratio is equal to A over B multiplied by the factor. Okay? So, ganito lang yung ratio. So, yung A dyan is yung number or yung rate of events ng one group. Tapos yung B, yung number or rate of events no another group. Okay? Tapos syempre, yung K mo is your factor or multiples of 10. Okay? So, for example, this one. The problem is, between 2000 and 2005, the Society of Diabetologists launched a survey. As a part of National Health Survey, 8,500 persons ages 40 to 77 years were enrolled in a follow-up study. At the end of enrollment, each study participant was classified as having or not having diabetes. The results are summarized as follows. Okay, so ito yung mga data natin yan. Okay, so meron tayong mga categories and then we have data for each of them. Now, the question here was calculate the ratio of non-diabetic to diabetic men. Okay? So, non-diabetic to diabetic men. So, sino yung A natin yan dito? Sino yung A natin? Okay? So, yung A natin is non-diabetic. Siya yung nauna dun sa tanong. So, non-diabetic men. So, ito na yun. So, ito yung value mo for your A. Okay? And then, sino yung B mo? Yung B is diabetic men. So, basically, itong nasa taas. Okay? So, 2, 3, 5, 0. How about your factor? Ano yung factor na gagamitin natin? Was it indicated by your problem? So, the answer is no. So, ano yung magiging factor mo? Your factor will be 100 kasi nga, hindi siya given. Okay? If it is given, sasabihin niya naman yan, use for example, use 10 as your factor or use 1,000 as your factor. So, since hindi niya sinabi in this particular problem, we are going to utilize 100. So, simple lang. A over B, multiplied by K. So, 1,500 over 2,350 times 100. So, ano yung magiging sagot nyo? So, you try to compute. So, the answer is, so 0.64 multiplied by 100 is 64. So, basically, the answer here would be, ay, wala dito. Okay, sorry. So, the answer is, there are 64, yan, yung nakuha mo sagot, non-diabetic men for every 100 diabetic men. Sorry, hindi nagkasya, no? Okay, ulitin ko na lang, sabihin ko. So, the answer here in this problem, so sabi niya, sa problem niya, calculate the ratio of non-diabetic to diabetic men. So, yung nasa numerator mo, yung unang binanggit, which is non-diabetics, which is 1,500 in our data. And then, yung sa denominator mo would be diabetic men. Okay, so dito naman sa baba. Okay, so you have 1,500 divided by 2,350, which is 0.64, multiplied by 100, you will get 64. So the answer is, there are 64 non-diabetic men for every 100 diabetic men. Okay? So, ganun lang siya kasimple, no? So, next. Okay? You can pause the video and then try to answer this. Simple lang naman to. Sabi niya, calculate the ratio of clinics per person. Okay? If you're already finished, let's try to answer it. So, 250, yan yung A mo niyan, and then yung B mo is 5,000. So, bakit? Kasi, calculate the ratio of clinics per person. So, una yung clinics, and then, person. Okay? So, ganun lang siya kasimple, di ba? Ngayon, is the factor given? Once again, it is not. So, basically, we are going to utilize 100. So, the answer is 0.05 multiplied by 100, you will get 5. So, the answer is, the final answer is, there are 5 clinics for every 100 persons. Okay? Yun, ganun lang siya kasimple, di ba? So, you already have one relative measure, ratio. Okay? Next. The next one is proportion. So, in this case naman, it is type of ratio in which those who are included in the numerator are also included in the denominator. So, basically, kanina, there is a different group for A and B, right? So, in this one naman, yung ginamit mo sa numerator, it will also be included or added doon sa denominator. Plus, yung total number, so B would be your total number by which the numerator is a subset. Ibig sabihin, saan ba siya kabilang yung A mo? Okay, kung saan nabibilang yung A mo, yun yung total number niya, which is yung B. Okay, so A plus B. And then, syempre, you have your factor. Okay, next. Okay, now let's try this one. So, you can pause the video and you can try this on your own kung kaya nyo. And, or mamaya, meron din naman tayong practice after this slide. Okay? So, again, the problem is between 2000 and 2005. So, umulit lang. Hindi ko nababasahin. Umulit lang naman. So, the question here naman is calculate the proportion of men who were diabetics. Okay? So, first, let's identify sino yung A. So, yung A natin, syempre, yung mga diabetic men. Right? So, diabetic men, yan, 2,350. And then, yung B mo niyan would be yung total number. So, syempre, yung total number is yung A plus yung non-diabetic men. So, yun yung magiging total number mo. So, itong diabetic men plus the non-diabetic men, 2,350 plus 1,500. Okay, gets? So, again, since this diabetic men is a subset of the gender men, diba? Men. Lahat ng lalaki for this particular category, i-add natin. Okay? Para at least, you will get the proportion of your men who were diabetics. Okay? And syempre, once again, the factor is not given. So, basically, 100 ulit. So magiging 2350 over 2350 plus 1500 is 3850 multiplied by 100. So the answer is 0.61 multiplied by 100, that is 61. Okay? So basically, since your your answer should be in a sentence format, sasabihin mo niyan, the proportion of men who were diabetics is 61%. Okay? Sir, bakit may percent? So basically, since dito, gumamit tayo ng 100 as your factor, no? Similarly, kanina gumamit din tayo. Pero, binanggit kasi natin for every 100 persons, no? So, dito, since we are not going to utilize na yung the proportion of men who were diabetics is 61 per 100 person, for every 100 persons, okay? You could also utilize yung percentage. Kasi, pag sinabing percentage, ano bang ibig sabihin ng percentage? Per century. So, ibig sabihin, kapag 100 yan, automatic, pwede kang gumamit ng percentage. However, if your factor here is, sabihin natin 10 or 1,000 or 10,000, di ka pwedeng gumamit ng percentage. No? Only for 100 factor. Okay? So, ulitin ko. So, this will be the answer now. The proportion of men who were diabetics is 61%. Okay? So, ulitin ko, no? Bago natin answer din to. Pag sinabing for every 100, yan. So, pag gumamit ka ng factor na 100, pwede kang gumamit ng for every 100 or per 100 or pwede ka rin gumamit ng percentage. Okay? So, pwede lahat yan. Okay? So, yung percentage, pwede yan. Basta yung factor mo is 100. Okay? Next is, so, you can pause the video and you try to answer this one. Okay? So, pag answer nyo na, so let's try, no? A local health department is conducting a survey to assess the prevalence of smoking among adults in a small town. Wait lang, patayin ko muna yun. Yan, medyo tahimik na. So, a local health department is conducting a survey to assess the prevalence of smoking among adults in a small town. They randomly selected 500 residents. The results of the survey are as follows. 210 respondents reported that they are smokers, and then 290 respondents reported that they are non-smokers. Compute for the proportion of smokers. Okay? So, ang gagawin mo lang, smokers, no? Proportion of smokers. Sino ba yung mga smokers? 210 over 210 plus 290 multiplied by your factor, which is hindi given. Okay? So, since hindi given, 100. So, 210 over 500 multiplied by 100, you will get 0.42. So, you will have 42. So, the answer is, the proportion of smokers is 42%. The proportion of smokers is 42%. Diba? So, ganun lang siya kasimple. Okay? And last will be your rate. Okay? Ang rate naman, it depends kung ano yung gagamitin mo. If it is incidence or prevalence. Okay? So, later on, di-discuss din natin yung difference between those two. So, rate is a type of ratio in which the measure of time is an intrinsic part of the denominator. So, A over X multiplied by K. Okay? So, yung A, syempre, yung affected individuals. Yung X is your population time or yung tinatawag nating person time. Okay? So, A over X multiplied by your factor. Okay? So, now, dito na tayo sa measures of disease occurrence or measures of occurrence. So, it quantifies how often a disease or condition occur within a given population. Kung gaano ba kadalas or gaano ba katagal or basta ganun, no? May measure mo yung sakit na to or illnesses sa isang given at risk na population. Okay? So, you have two types of measures, incidence and prevalence. So, si prevalence, siya lang mag-isa, prevalence measure. Incidence, we have two. Incidence proportion or yung tinatawag din nating cumulative incidence or yung risk. No? We compute for risk. Kapag naman incidence rate, this is your otherwise known as your incidence density. Okay? Next. Now, this is the definition, no, ng difference in their definition between your prevalence and your incidence. Prevalence, yung measures existing or yung tinatawag nating prevalent, nangyari na, no, ng mga cases of disease at a single point in time. So, nangyari na tong sakit na to, and then babalikan mo lang, kunin mo yung mga data, no, pwede mo na i-compute yung prevalence. Whereas incidence, it is defined as the number of new cases of a disease that occur during a specified period of time in a population at risk for developing the diseases. So basically, pag incidence, there are new cases involved here. So basically, meron kang tinatawag na observation period in incidence. Okay? So, prevalence versus incidence. Yan. So, makikita nyo dito in these pictures, meron ng defined population at a particular baseline yung prevalence. And then, nagkasakit sila. And then, meron ding mga hindi nagkasakit. Yan. Nagkasakit, hindi nagkasakit. So, yung mga nagkasakit, those are what we call prevalent cases. And then, dito ka na yan, did not have the disease at the baseline. Okay? Dun ka sa, you were going to follow up only those who did not have the disease at baseline. Okay? So, babalikan mo kasi yung mga data. So, that is your prevalence. In incidence naman, you do not have any baseline. No? Walang sakit dun sa baseline mo at all. Kaya gagawa ka ng tinatawag nating observation period. Okay? And then, after that particular observation period, you're going to count kung ilan yung nag-develop ng sakit. And those are what we call incident cases. Okay? Yung mga nag-develop ng sakit. So, in other words, those with the disease at the time of observation, no, are called prevalent cases or prevalent or existing cases. Yun namang those without the disease will undergo an observation again. Okay? Sabihin na natin 1 year. After a year, those who develop the disease will be identified as incident cases or new cases. Okay? So that's the difference. Now, incidence. Incidence has a longitudinal component. Ibig sabihin, pang matagalan. Okay? It requires at least 2 sets of observations. 2 observation points at minimum. Yeah, don't worry. Since this is just an introduction for epidemiology, lahat ng computation natin, there are only 2 observation points or otherwise, isa lang. Hindi natin pahihirapan yung mathematics natin in terms of epidemiology. Okay? Sorry. So, yung 2 observation points, we have the start and then the end. Start is you assemble the disease for the 3 individuals, and then at the end you count the number of affected individuals. So the number of new cases of disease that occur in a specified period of time in a population at risk for developing disease, yun yung mga tinatawag nating incident cases, no? Yung mga new cases. Next. So, ano ba yung mga numerator and denominator for incidence measure? So, the numerator here would be the new cases of disease occurring in the population during a specified period of time. Yung mga incident cases, new cases. Tandaan nyo, numerator, new cases of disease occurring in the population during a specified period of time. Denominator naman, on the other hand, represents the people who are at risk for developing the disease. Okay? And for you to better understand or para mas makapag-decide ka ano yung gagamitin mong particular formula for this incident measure, kailangan you need first to identify yung type of population doon sa particular problem mo. Okay? If it is fixed or if it is dynamic. Okay? So, pag fixed, it is no change in population size during the follow-up period, uniform follow-up period for every member of population. Pag naman dynamic, there are multiple changes in population size during the follow-up, or pwede ring varying yung follow-up time. For example, sa fixed population, nag-start ka ng January natapos kang December. Yung nag-start ka ng observation mo, meron kang 500 na pasyente na ino-observe. Pagdating ng December, 500 pa din sila. So basically, you have a fixed population. Pag naman dynamic, maaring 500 ka nag-start, nabawasan sila, naging 450, or pwede ring 500 ka nag-start, nadagdagan sila, 550. Okay? Or pwede ring, instead of January, nag-start ka ng March ng 250, and then nag-start ka ng nag-start ka ng January ng 250, tapos yung iba natapos ng March ng 250, tapos nag-start ka ng 250 ng March, natapos ng December ng 450. So naging iba-iba. Okay? Basta tandaan nyo, pag dynamic, there are multiple changes or varying dun sa follow-up time, no? Magulo siya, kumbaga. Pag fixed, sila lang, kung sino yung mga nag-start mong na-observe, sila din yung at the end of the time. Okay? So, incidence proportion muna. So, pag fixed population ka, again, pag fixed population, yung mga population mo, yung observation period ng start hanggang end, sila pa rin yun. Okay? Fixed population. It assumes that the entire population is at risk at the beginning of the study period and has been followed for a specified time interval for the development of the outcome. It represents the accumulation of new cases over time. So basically, kaya natin siya tinawag na cumulative incidence or the measure of risk. Okay? So, ang formula natin dito is the number of new cases of a disease during a given period of time over the total population at risk during the given time period multiplied by your factor. So, basically, for example, to determine the risk of diabetes among the adolescents in Barangay Matamis, the barangay health workers followed up a population of 1,000 non-diabetic adolescents over 15 years. At the end of the follow-up period, 55 adolescents were newly diagnosed with diabetes. What is the risk of diabetes among the adolescents observed in Barangay Matamis? Okay? So now, the first question, anong type of population? Is it fixed or is it dynamic? Tandaan nyo, nag-start siya ng ilan ba? 1,000 non-diabetic adolescents. Okay? At the end, hindi niya na binanggit, no? Sinabi niya lang, follow-up period 55 newly diagnosed. So, nag-assume na lang tayo na at the end of the 15 years, 1,000 pa rin yung at risk for diabetes. Okay? So, anong klaseng population to? So, this is fixed or is it dynamic? So, the answer is, it is, dito pa lang pala yun sa dulo. Wala pala. So, the answer is actually, it is a fixed population. No? So, dapat sinulat to dito. So, it's a fixed population and then yung involved dito would be 1,000 non-diabetic adolescents in Barangay Matamis. So, ilang follow-up period? 15 years. Do all have the same follow-up period? Yes. So, it's a fixed population, incidence, proportion. How many new cases of diabetes after follow-up? So, you have 5.5. So, paano nakuha yung 5.5? So, yung 55, so 55 divided by 1,000 na yan. Okay? Sila kasi yung at risk, di ba? At risk population. Tapos yung 55, yung incident cases or yung new cases. Okay? Tapos multiplied by 100 kasi hindi na naman binanggit yung factor na gagamitin mo. Okay? So, you have 0.055. So, ibig sabihin, 0.55 multiplied by 100, you will get 5.5. Okay? So, since we're talking about people here, mga tao, yung pinag-uusapan natin. Okay? So, wala namang kalahating tao. So, you cannot answer 5.5 in this case. Okay? So, instead, mag-round up ka. 6. Okay? 6. So, there are 6 new cases of diabetes for every 100 of the population. Okay? Ganun lang siya kasimple. So, next is the realities of our follow-up. No? In reality, napakahirap gumawa ng 15 years, tapos 1,000 yung nag-start ka, tapos 1,000 pa rin sila at the end after 15 years. That's impossible. That's near impossible, right? Kasi nga, some of those lilipat ng bahay, ganun. Kaya, maaring pumanaw na. Okay, kaya nagtago. So, or maaari ding ayaw na nilang sumali sa study mo. So, basically, mawawala na sila for after 15 years or any point in time, no? So, and the reality is some of them enter at the same time but lost to follow up at different termination points. Or pwede ring enter the study at a different points over the study period but common termination points. So, ibig sabihin, nag-start yung isa ng January or ng year 1, tapos yung isa naman, pumasok siya sa study mo ng year 7, diba? So, medyo magkaiba sila ng starting period. Okay? Pwede rin namang enter at different points tapos nag-terminate in different points. Maaring nag-start siya ng year 2 natapos ng year 7, yung isa naman nag-start ng year 1 natapos ng year 15, di ba? So, ganyan ang realidad ng follow-up. So, paano gagamitin natin? So, instead of incidence proportion, meron tayong tinatawag na incidence rate. And this is for what type of population? Dynamic population. So, this one, force of morbidity, mortality, or incidence density. So, it measures of instantaneous rate of development of disease in the population. And incidence rate also represents the speed, yung rapidity, density, or intensity at which populations are expected to generate cases. No? So, incidence rate, so Similar lang yung letter, yung sa taas niya, yung sa numerator, yung incident cases, yung new cases of disease during a given time period. And then, ang difference niya with the proportion would be the denominator. Yung proportion, tandaan nyo, the total population at risk. Ganun lang siya, right? In incidence rate, since this is a dynamic population, ibig sabihin varying yung value ng population mo. Okay? Ibig sabihin, dito naman, total person time of observation. Okay? So, yan. Numerator, denominator. So, new cases of disease occurring in the population during a specified period of time. In short, yung incident cases. Pag denominator naman, sum of time each person was observed totaled for all persons. So, yung sum ng kabuuan ng gaano mo sila katagal inobserve, kumbaga. Okay? So, person time is sum of each individual's time at the risk or the sum of the time that each person remained under observation. Take note that if individual observation period is not known, an estimate person time is obtained. So, kaya tuturo ko din yan. It is the product of the average size of the population and then the length of the follow-up period. So, ito yung pinakamadaling pag-compute ng person time. So, check nyo lang na yan. In this table, yung may X, that means nag-develop ng case. So, you have 1, 2. Meron kang dalawang case or incident cases. So, basically, yung A mo dito or yung numerator is 2. Okay? So, sir, paano naman yung person time? So, the person time here is bibilangin mo niyan kung ilan yung period wherein at risk yung mga respondents mo. Okay? So, sir, paano natin i-count yun? Okay? So, since this is your year is 0, so dito sila nag-start ng observation, di ba? So, after a year, ito na yan. So, 1, 2, 3. Tapos, nag-develop na siya ng disease. So, 3 dito. Kay letter A. Kay letter B, 1, 2, 3. So, tatlo din. Kay letter C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. And hindi siya nag-develop ng disease. Next, si letter D. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. And then kay letter E, 1 and 2. Tapos nag-develop na siya ng disease. So, 2. So, total mo lang yan. You have 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 5 is 11, plus 4 is 15, plus 2 is 17. So, your person time or yung sa denominator mo is 17. So, the total person time would be 17. So, 2 over 17 multiplied by 100. So, ano magiging sagot mo? 0.118. So, 0.118. Wait lang. Murahin natin lahat yan. Wala, ang dami ko nilagay. Yan. So, 0.118 multiplied by 100 is equal to 11.8 cases per 100 person years. Okay? So, ganun lang siya kasimple, no? Lagi lang may numerator over denominator multiplied by your factor. So, again, dahil hindi naman nabanggit kung ano yung factor dito, we are going to utilize 100. And, ang magiging sentence mo naman here, no, is 11.8 cases per 100 person years. No? Incidence rate, laging may person years. Okay? Next naman, what if ganito yung reporting? So, instead of a table, binigyan tayo ng reporting na ganito, which is wherein meron kang beginning, tas meron kang end period. Okay? So, in this case, ang gagawin mo niyan is you take the average. Okay? Yan. So, person time is equal to the average population multiplied by the length of the follow-up period. Okay? So, yung average population, we have, nag-start ka 700. Okay. Nag-end ka ng 520. So, nag-start ka 700. Nag-end ka ng 520. So, average mo yan divided by 2. Okay? Now, yung 2 na yan, sabi dito, so yung average population to ito. Tapos, multiply mo daw sa length of the follow-up period. So, gano'n mo ba siya katagal in-observe yung mga population na yan? So, sabi dito, 4 months. So, 4. Multiply by 4. So, 4 months. Yan, sulat na natin yung kung ano yung unit niya dito. Kasi importante din yun para hindi nyo makalimutan. So, basically, the answer here is 2,440 person months. Okay? So, in that case, meron ka ng ilalagay sa denominator mo kasi meron ka ng person time. Right? So, ito na yung magiging person time mo. Okay? So, ngayon, pwede mo nang i-compute yung inyong incidence rate. So, 400, which is yung incidence cases, number of developed diseases, new cases, over yung person time mo, which is 2,440, again, multiplied by 100 na to, since walang factor na binigay. So, you have 0.16. Okay? So, meron kang 16 cases per 100 persons per month. Okay, so this will be your final answer. 16 cases per 100 persons per month. Okay? Now guys, huwag kayong papalito na. So, pwede magbago itong per month na to. Dahil since dito sa observation, month yung ginamit nila, so per month yung gagamitin natin. So pag per years yan, yung observation niya is years, gagamitin mo is per years. Pag weeks, no? Weeks. Okay? So huwag tayong papalito doon. Okay? So ganun lang siya kasimple. You need your person time computation, no? Tapos gawin mo na ulit yung computation natin for incidence rate, which is your incident cases over your person time multiplied by a factor. Tapos yun na yan. Tapos na-interpret mo na lang. Okay? So ayun. May note na naman. Wait lang, burahin natin lahat to. Walang eraser tong application ko so sorry. Burahin lang natin. Ayan. So, note, if individual observation period not known, an estimate person time is obtained and is a product of the average size of the population and the length of the follow-up period. Yung kanina din yan. Next is your prevalence. Okay, so prevalence naman tayo. Pag prevalence, it measures existing or yun yung tawag na prevalent cases, existing cases of a disease at a single point in time. So, kukuha ka lang ng snapshot na tinatawag. Snapshot of a particular disease occurrence or event on a single point in time. So, it quantifies the proportion of individuals in population who have the disease at a specific instant. Okay. So, how is point in time specified? So, it exists at a specific point. Okay, tandaan yan. Nag-exist siya on a specific point. Ganun mo lang malalaman na prevalence ang gagamitin mo. Okay? So, prevalence proportion is the total number of cases at a specific point in time. So, similar lang. Yung incidence, yung mga new cases yun. Pag prevalence naman, number of cases at a specific point in time over the total population examined multiplied by your factor. So, ayan, no? Yan. Ano yung numerator natin, denominator for your prevalence? So, numerator is the mix of people with different durations of the disease. Okay? So, basically, yung total number ng cases na yun, ano yung specific specified time, single point in time. And then your denominator would be your total population at the time of your observation. For example, ito. In a survey of 2,150 women who gave birth in Maine in 2000, a total of 478 reported taking a multivitamin at least 4 times a week. During the month of becoming pregnant, calculate the prevalence of frequent multivitamin use in this group. So, multivitamin utilization ang kinocompute natin dito. So, first one, ilan ba yung letter A natin is yung prevalent event. Okay, ilan ba yung nag-take ng multivitamin? Kumbaga, yun yung binibilang natin. So, 478. Tapos, yung total population ng mga kung sino-sino, yung mga tag dito, yung mga babae, no? Kasi pregnant, so basically mga babae, no? So ilan ba ang total na tinanungan ng survey? So 2,150. So this will be your denominator. Tapos multiplied by 100 kasi hindi na naman binanggit yung factor. Okay. So your answer here is 0.22. So basically 22. Right? So interpret the prevalence of frequent multivitamins use in the group of women who gave birth in Maine is 22%. So ganun lang kasimple. Numerator, denominator multiplied by your factor. Ulit-ulit lang, di ba? Okay, next. So, I think this is the last topic, no? So, what is the relationship between incidence and prevalence? So, yung mga flask dito, it represents yung community mo. Okay. So, yung flask is the whole community. Tapos, yung mga small beads na yan, yung maliliit na bilog-bilog, it represents the prevalent cases of a disease in a community. Okay, ibig sabihin yung mga existing cases, 'di ba? Kasi prevalent cases. Okay? Pag mapapansin nyo, sa letter A, baseline prevalence. No? So, nag-i-exist lang yung mga disease na yan. Walang dumadagdag, walang nababawas. Okay? Sa letter B naman, ang nangyayari dyan is if you increase the incident rates, no? Incident, yan. Nagkakaroon ng mga new cases. Increased yung incidence. Anong nangyayari sa prevalence? So, prevalence also increases. Okay? So, kung mapapansin nyo, kapag nagkaroon ng new cases, prevalence cases increases as well. Okay? Diba? So, letter C. Pag letter C naman, check nyo. Deaths or cure decreases prevalences. Yan. Papansin nyo, yung flask, binigyan ng butas. Okay? Kapag tumataas yung number of deaths, no, may mga namamatay, bababa yung prevalent cases. Pag marami din namang gumagaling, bababa yung prevalence cases. So basically, ganun ka-importante na you need also to identify sino-sino yung namamatay, kung bakit bumababa yung kaso ng particular disease. So if you remember, no, nung pandemic, yung COVID-19, bumababa na yung cases of COVID-19. However, hindi natin alam sino yung mga namamatay pala doon. Tapos yung iba pala, konti lang yung gumagaling, right? So, ganun. So, yun, as epidemiologist, you need to understand, no, kung sino yung, or identify yung mga tawag dito, yung mga namamatay at saka yung mga gumagaling. And then lastly, sa letter D, continuous yung nadadagdagan yung incidents. Okay, continuous siya. Tapos yung deaths, continuous din. Di ba? So, continual addition of new cases and increases yung prevalence. Tapos, yung death and or cure diseases, decreases naman yung prevalence. So, continuous na, walang nangyayaring pagbaba ng mga kaso ng sakit. So, ito yung nangyari ng pandemic, no? Maraming namamatay, may mga gumagaling din. Okay, so nababawasan supposedly yung prevalence. However, dumadami rin yung incidence, no, or new cases ng COVID-19. So, the importance ng epidemiologist dito is to identify yung mga risk factors, no, or kung bakit tumataas yung incidence, or pwede ring identify mo or tumulong ka sa pag-prevent ng pag-increase ng incidence, no? Or pag-treat, kailangan i-treat mo yung mga existing cases, prevalent cases, kailangan gumaling sila, cured, no? So, yun ang importansya ng ng epidemiology, okay, in public health. Sabi dito, the effect of lowering prevalence through either death or cure underlies an issue in public health. For example, no, nakapag-discover ng cure or therapy to improve the quality of life ng mga individuals or prolonging their lives. Since na-improve yung quality of life, stagnant naman yung deaths. So, hindi mababawasan yung count ng prevalent cases. Sabi ko nga kanina, kailangan you identify sino yung mga gumagaling, sino yung mga namamatay. For example, sa mga may diabetes mellitus din, since meron ng insulin therapy, it causes the longevity of your diabetes mellitus patient survival. So, pag in-observe mo yun, no, since nag-exist pa rin yung diabetes mellitus sila, so kasama pa rin sila or kabilang pa rin sila sa existing cases. Okay? So, in this way, hindi nun ka-useful as a risk measure si prevalence. So, kailangan observe mo talaga sila. So, it works hand in hand yung prevalence and yung incidence computations or measures of disease. Okay? So, on that note, tapos na yung ating second topic. So, if you have questions, email nyo lang ako dito. Don't hesitate to email and to PH. Yan. Okay? So, if you have any questions, email lang kayo dyan, Outlook. Tapos, answerin natin. See you on our next meeting. So, pwede rin kayo magtanong in our next face-to-face meeting. No? Especially kung may mga gusto pa kayong palinaw na mga topics. Okay? Thank you and God bless.